After so long, not really, according to so many of you, you didn't, of course I know, you want to hear from me every day, possibly twice a day. But you have to realize too, there are so many people, and before we used to have rooms full of people. If we look in India, we have yogis there, and we have the spiritual beings there, and there are thousands of people sitting around them on the ground. But in North America that is quite different, as you all well know. We, very much so, use the internet. So I welcome your lovely attention and all the wonderful, kind and inquiring emails we receive, and also the many thank yous I get, which I'm very grateful for, of course. Now, there is so much upon the planet, and as one lovely person from Belgium wrote and said, "Your Holiness, how come others couldn't foretell disasters, and how come Nostradamus didn't give any times, and not even Edgar Cayce gave times?" And I have to tell you, really, Blaine, there is not much I can do about why they didn't, and why I have is because I'm living in the time that these things are coming about very rapidly. And I came to the planet during a time that was, we could say, very volatile situations. So that is, of course, the clarification why I am different, and you are feeling that you get precise answers, or what shall we say, foretelling, or warnings, or whatever. And that is also for you who is yeah. Can I say you are living in fear when you do not need to have fear? You need to be mentally prepared and with it. But first of all, before we speak about, as you have family in Australia and New Zealand, that I have to tell you, yes, it is of great concern. But also remember, in my prophecies I foretold that Australia and New Zealand would be moving towards this part upon the planet. Now, if that is taking place, then how come so many of you are believing the planet is coming to an end? We know also that Creator can create massive fires everywhere, spontaneously, by activating the solar conditions in the universe. But most of all, let us have love and compassion. And I see that compassion is lacking when another very kind person here who came to visit from afar said, "Are they being compassionate towards you in North America?" And I have to laugh and I say no, because this is New Age part of the world. They are into so many isms and religions and whatever there are out there, and you know, if people are really spiritual, then they don't need all these religions and all these things, because they know that they have one Creator, not 10,000, not 100 by different names, not many gods. You know, and boy, this planet has worshipped many different gods. And we know also that Zoroaster, Zarathustra, Zarathustra has also spoken about this. And know, you people in India, when you were inquiring, that somehow you need to awaken to the fact that Zarathustra was educated by some very holy people in India. When he left Afghanistan, he went to Egypt, and from Egypt he went to India and settled for a long time in India, and his high spiritual being found nourishment and education in India. At this very moment, we are also having to drift off from this conversation, but before we do that, we have to thank Creator for these times, even though very difficult that we live in. And I mean very difficult. For many, many, many people. And if the ones that feel that they live so cozy and rosy and float on their beds of money, that they don't need to reach out and do for those who suffer, well, you know, there is an afterlife. When you leave this body, there's an afterlife for your spiritual being to be refined, to have the blessing of the soul. And that is also a thing that I wanted to speak to, as we can see the conditions that are taking place, and I find them, not to insult you, but to just say it, hullabaloo things with the gypsies, with all the Romani and whatever else they are called, gypsies in Vatican. It was less than 15 years ago that these wonderful beings, as they call them today, at that time they called them dangerous and dirty, thieving gypsies, Vatican, same Vatican that you saw on television in the last 2 days. They were living in old hothouses where they had their plants, and they were living in the mud with no bathrooms, no bathroom facility, no fresh drinking water. And these poor women and these girls were there, kept there, homeless, destitute, suffering. And Rome thought that was, of course, what they deserved. Today, all of a sudden, it's all over the world that Rome is having a celebration with the gypsies. Have the gypsies forgotten World War II, that they were rounded up through the Roman Catholic Church and through other institutions to be taken to Auschwitz with the poor Jewish people? And the other people, intellectuals, spiritual people, if they were not Catholic, all were thrown in the same train wagons and chucked off to these concentration camps. So I just feel that it is time again that we open our hearts, our eyes, and that we reason. Also, to just throw it in for good measure, remember when you go on these sites that we have put up, I have demonstrated there that your planet is in a polar wobble going to a polar shift. And you were in a polar shift before, and the sun was on a different location shining upon your planet. So this also is shown by wildlife. The salmon is going to different areas. They're not intelligent enough to see where the salmon are going to. They're just blabbing that the salmon is disappearing. Well, sure, if you are going to move from A to B, then you have disappeared at A. Isn't that right? If you see the polar bears, and if you really watch the polar bears, they are also relocating, for their devices in their pure brains are ticking, are telling them that it is time to move to other places. That is when the polar shift took place, we found many mammoths, their residue, their skeletons, in these places where supposedly there were never any tropical signs and any elephants. Well, some of them over some centuries they started to readjust themselves and they grew fur, but the very tropical ones couldn't do that. And so when the polar shift took place, they collapsed and died there. And that has also been with many, many other things that are still visible all around the planet. Now, I would like to ask today, this is a serious question, of all of you, since so many of you have emailed, thousands of emails of you, and I'm very happy you do. But I also want to ask you, do you prepare yourself? And when you prepare yourself, you prepare with extra so you can help some other wonderful beings who suffer?